in addition to being linked, because each organization is having access to a very critical, unique, strategic asset, a strategic alliance is also focused upon benefiting the customer. So what resource is it that is going to be so advantageous to your organization that it's going to draw customers away from your competitors? So this is also key. So you're setting yourself apart from the other similar organizations that are in that ecosystem. However, when you do that, you're giving up a bit of autonomy of your organization. So in a partnership, not so much. You're maintaining control over all of your resources. You might be working collaboratively. It might be something that you're doing long term, but you're not really giving up control. Whereas in a strategic alliance, both organizations are investing human capital, financial capital, facilities, their brand, right? Key aspects of their organization, and they're doing this over the longer term. And so in doing that, you're delegating some of that decision making because you're making joint decisions about how to best use those resources together, how to best tackle that target market issue or problem, how to best compete against other organizations. And they might be organizations from different industries, right? Like it might be a sport organization, and then it could be, soft drinks, credit cards, automobiles, right? So you're becoming acutely aware of the strategic issues confronting that ally, and then you're assisting them in addressing those. So the organizations are working very proximally together, way more so than a partnership. So again, because you're committing so many of those valuable resources of your organization to those allies, you really can only manage 1, 2, maybe potentially 3 allies. The rest of those organizations you would consider as partners. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an example from my background. When I was teaching at the University of British Columbia, I was also volunteering for the Canuck Foundation. This was a number of years ago when the Canucks were still owned by the Griffiths family, but they were just looking at purchasing the Grizzlies from the NBA, so they had their application in to purchase the new franchise. And they were going to, the purpose of doing that was because they wanted to build what was at that time General Motors Place. And so they needed 2 teams to be able to afford to, fill that building for enough nights of the year to build the new facility. And they owned all of the land. The organization that was central to this entire plan was General Motors. So General Motors had come on board to be the naming, obviously, rights holder for the new facility, but they also were going to do extensive amount of concourse signage, showing off the new cars. They would be hosting exhibits within the new facility as vehicle launches in Canada. So a number of strategic plans that were directly linked to this new facility and gaining that huge presence, not only in the Vancouver market, but obviously every time they say GM Place, I think it was called a garage by some people in the media, but would have been Canada-wide, and of course the excitement around bringing the basketball team to Canada. So the foundation wanted to hold a huge fundraising event, and the artist was Celine Dion, and they had already secured Celine Dion to come, and she had offered to do this as a benefit concert, so she would not be paid, which was amazing to have an artist of that caliber. So you can see for Vancouver, this would have been quite a considerable event. And so we're together. There's probably about 50 people in the room. The Griffiths family are there, representing the foundation and obviously the franchise side. And Joanne Griffith looks around and she said, where's the representative from General Motors? And someone said, oh, they couldn't make it today. And she canceled the meeting. Right there and then, we did not proceed without General Motors being there, because they would have had first choice about how they wanted to be represented. Did they want to have the naming rights to the Celine Dion concert, right? All of the very, very top assets available through having this incredible global artist come to Vancouver. General Motors would have been their primary ally associated with bringing that event. So this is an example of how decision making was made within the organization, within the context of having one organization of such considerable value. When we look at a partnership versus an alliance, there's another sort of critical difference. So in a partnership, both organizations, both partners are bringing together assets and they're leveraging those assets. In a strategic alliance, the emphasis on creating new assets. All right, value creation again, with the end user being the customer, but you're using the core competencies of the firm that we talked about before in strategy, and you're bringing those core competencies together to create something new, to create something that is of value in the industry that hasn't been done before. So this can be done by creating new capabilities within the organization. So creating something new could be something new related to customer service, to in-stadia expertise, maybe bringing a technology company together with a sport organization, new distribution channels, new modes of ticketing. Obviously, digital technology has brought out a plethora of ways that organizations can completely restructure the ways that they communicate with their fans. So certainly that would be another area. We have also seen esports and professional sport organizations working together and bringing those competencies together to create incredible value add for the fans in the stands as this goes on. So this is a key difference between a partnership and an alliance, that both organizations are investing, whether it's their existing resources, their staff, their innovative technologies, whatever it is, to create something new that hasn't been done before, and very critically, that would be virtually impossible for another organization to create, right? That's that sustainable competitive advantage that an alliance brings that a partnership wouldn't necessarily bring. So it's key to remember that if you're investing those types of resources, okay, so your inimitable, valuable, unique resources that are obviously worth a lot of money into this relationship, that it's going to be a long-term relationship. You're not going to create something new with this incredible value that could then be leveraged potentially by offering new businesses for just a short period of time. So strategic alliances are going to have a duration of, maybe it's a 5 to 10 year window, if not longer. The other idea is that an alliance is going to, and partnerships evolve and change over time as well, but we might see that even more so with an alliance as they co-develop these new ways of doing things, and then realize that, okay, maybe we did this for the sports fans, but this is beneficial to other industries as well. And one example there would be Walt Disney, that became so well known for its absolutely incredible customer service that they started a consulting firm where they actually went out and taught other people how to enhance their customer service. So what other new business ventures would then extend out of what was formerly this alliance between two firms with maybe a couple of specific goals? And then of course the alliance is still held to the original values of the founders of the organization, but it continues to evolve as they look at new target markets that would also benefit from this new value creation that's been developed through the strategic alliance. To get a bit of a sense of an example of a really interesting alliance, there are some segments available on Sakai looking at the NFL Verizon Alliance. So definitely make sure that you review those. I'm just going to take a moment to read a quote that really emphasizes the importance of strategic alliances. Alliances are more profitable on average than regular operations of companies. 3 studies have been done, and alliances showed that on average they provided 16% return as compared to 12% for Fortune 500 companies who operated on their own outside of alliances. Strategic alliances are known to be very successful, in particular because of the knowledge transfer. So when you have 2 organizations, potentially 3, working very closely together, it means that through that innovation process, there's a lot of knowledge transfer between the organizations. They also overcome the burdens of vertical integration, that is buying up another organization and having to put out that critical expenditure at the beginning. Alliances are known to overcome the barriers that are created through market expansion as you move into other countries. So far, it all sounds so easy, right? Let's just identify a core competency, find another organization has one that would streamline with ours to create something new, and we'll develop this alliance. And certainly this is done, but the important thing is making sure that that alliance is successful over time. And this is where organizations who enter into both partnerships and alliances really fall short. So importantly, both organizations need to think strategically. They know that they're in this for the long haul because they're developing something new, and that takes time, of course, through the various processes of innovation. It means that both organizations need to continue to acquire the skills. So that's the talent, the innovation, the young scholars that are coming out of university, tapping into innovative other companies to gain their resources, to continue to ensure that they're providing the leading edge technology or knowledge in the area that they're specializing in. Organizations may need to restructure. We talked about that really important idea of giving up decision making and some autonomy because you're working so closely with this organization. Well, this might mean restructuring your organization, that instead of having a vice president of the organization manage that alliance, it may be the people who are actually doing the day-to-day innovation that are making those critical decisions about what resources they need. So certainly looking at that management style of the organization and the structure are going to be key to ensuring its success. And here it might be a participative management structure where you might have representatives from the board of the alliance company sitting on your board of directors, or actually some of their managers are co-managing certain sections of the organization that are leading in that innovation. And very key that you may need specialized skills among the top management in order to be able to actually leverage and propel the individuals working on these innovative projects forward. And so that might need either hiring new executives in or making sure that you have continued executive training as needed as the alliance continues to progress and potentially move out into other fields. We're going to take a look at a graphic that really tells us why alliances are so prevalent in business today, but certainly sport organizations would be included. So as you take a look at the graphic, you'll notice at the top and the bottom, it says globalization, and at the bottom is technology. So the theorists suggest, and this is Dawes and Hamel, they suggest that the main reasons for alliances are either to take advantage of the globalization of world markets and to enter into new global markets, and or to leverage emerging technologies. These are the 2 pivotal reasons that are rationalized entering into an alliance that certainly might differentiate from a partnership. as you take a look at the graphic, you'll notice that many of the key aspects of alliances that we've been talking about are built into this graphic. So plugging skills graphs, building new competencies in your staff, leveraging the co-specializations of both organizations. So these are critical elements of strategic alliances, but remember that they're underpinned by these broad goals of entering into global markets or leveraging technology. So the essence here is building value through alliances for both organizations. There needs to be a really high value of trust to the point where you say, I mean, instead of hunkering down and keeping all of those, the expertise for yourself, where you're basically opening the doors for the other organization, and you're saying, use my brand, use my expertise. Here's access to all of my staff. Here's my resources, right? Here's all the equity that I've built up in this technology that I've been developing for years. So this is a huge stance that moves far away from what we talked about with Michael Porter and the Five Force model, right? Where you're building barriers to entry. Here you're operating completely differently, where you're basically infusing those brands together. So the brands become synonymous. When you think about the Olympics, you think Coke and McDonald's, right? And this is built up over time in the minds of the consumer because both organizations have invested over time and shared and promoted their ideas together. So great story to tell you. So the vice president of global partnerships for Coke heard this great podcast with him the other day. And he said that when Coke has a new partner, so a new sport property with an event, and they're going to be obviously the soft drink holder at the partner for that event. He said that they will go to that event 6 or 7 years in advance and help them create the best event ever. So they take all the know-how from delivering thousands of events, through decades of time, even top events like the Olympic Games, and then delivering that know-how to these other events, because Coke only wants to be associated with a great event. But the event knows that when they're sponsored by Coke, they're not just getting a dollar value, they're getting all of this know-how at the same time. So this is the value creation and delivery that's very unique to strategic alliances. So when we think about the factors that are actually driving the prevalence of alliances in sport and other industries, let's think about actually putting together our front line on our hockey team, right? So everybody's going to play their own part, but together they're creating these winning synergies, right? So you might have your front end defenseman, that's your technology. They're going to sink all of their money into your tech, right? But everybody on the team doesn't need to do that. Maybe your Sidney Crosby is going to be your front man, that's going to be your brand, right? So everybody's going to see that technology through the image of that brand. The other players are going to potentially help you raise or decrease the cost of what it is that you're doing. Okay, you also have that life cycle. You know that these athletes on this team are only going to last so long, right? So who are you going to be phasing in as new competencies are needed, right? Who needs to come in from the bench, right, to take over when that person is tired? So when you're thinking about your alliance, again, this is organic. This is part of that ecosystem in sport where we're constantly looking for what's the driving technology? How do we access that without having to produce it ourselves or buy it, right? How are we creating this front line that's going to be the winning formula for success, that's going to capitalize on the competencies of these other organizations, but everybody wins? Thus far, you have a pretty good understanding of strategic alliances. But then comes that really important question about why enter into a strategic alliance rather than a partnership. So certainly we've touched on this as we've gone through our discussion of strategic alliances, but I just want to highlight a few really important points and these are goes back to that really important part of decision making, right? So you're the manager, you're having to decide, what the nature of this relationship would be. So why would I, choose this organization to be my ally rather than a partner? So very critically, that you and the ally are creating something that cannot be replicated, that is directly linked to the competitive strategy of both organizations within the context of their respective industries. An alliance is more sustainable. We mentioned that we're looking here at a 5 to 10 year investment, given the level of integration in the organization, the merging of the two brands of the organizations that are involved, the incredible capacity for organizational learning. So if you're, sharing that tacit knowledge that is, your core competency of your firm with another organization, then you're not going to end that relationship and let them use that industry intel, right? And share that with one of your competitors. So you're wanting to make sure that you're maintaining that relationship, and very importantly, you're growing that relationship so it continues to evolve as both organizations are learning more, maybe opening up new opportunities globally, thinking about new opportunities for products, maybe potentially another client that you might reach out to, because of the innovations that both organizations are creating together. Sort of more specifically, you're overcoming some patent restrictions that you might have, and certainly anti-competitive behavior. So certainly we don't want the government coming down and that you might have with a vertically integrated organization, where they're saying, and we're seeing this now with our major tech companies, right, where we're having Congress, investigate Google, Microsoft, Facebook in particular. So by allying and not owning, then you're overcoming some of those behaviors that might be seen to be anti-competitive. Very importantly, you're able to bring your products to market much more quickly. So you're getting what's known as that first mover advantage in terms of introducing a new tech product or whatever your area of expertise is into that marketplace. And again, we're moving on to talk about vertical integration next. But when you align with another organization, you don't have to buy that company. You don't have to put out that absolutely massive, maybe potentially $100 million financial investment to have access to those critical resources, branding, legitimacy, partners, etc., that you would gain from that strategic ally. Despite the clear evidence of the benefits of alliances, there are certainly some drawbacks. One of them is you're now sharing control, that you're no longer able to unilaterally make decisions for your organization because you're so heavily integrated with the allied organization. So certainly that can be a drawback. If you had a new opportunity, come up with another organization, you'd have to go to that ally and run those ideas by them. You couldn't unilaterally just, make those decisions about products, markets, new services, investments, etc., without gaining that input. And hopefully your ally would be open to some of these ideas, and you would be looking at other partnerships that would benefit the ally as well. But certainly you no longer have complete control over, what your organization is doing. There's also the risk of alliance failure. And there's a huge amount of literature on the undermanagement of relationships and the reasons why alliances and partnerships fail. But imagine divulging all of your critical corporate and industry information to this organization, and for one reason or another, one partner severs that relationship. So that's a considerable risk. Now you can counter that by having contracts and agreements that are set out and obviously scrutinized by your lawyers, by ensuring proper management is in place with the ally that's maintaining communication, and allocating managers specifically to be, ensuring that the alliance and all of the objectives and timelines and integration of the organization is in place, so you know that that ally is satisfied with the progress and the nature of the interaction that's taking place. Alliances are not a cheap and easy fix to entering into global markets. So you might think about aligning with another organization that's in a country, Africa, Europe, South America, as a means to access that new market for your products and services, because they already understand the culture, the norms, the government regulations, policies, procedures, taxes, etc. However, your organization will still have to abide by and potentially change to meet those new standards of that other organization. So it's not a quick fix. The other real issue is there's only so much that you can expect from your allies, knowing that they're also running their own company, and certainly the integration between the two companies, if it's managed appropriately, you cannot overextend on your end or require more from the partner that is maybe needed. Where we see that happening is very much in public-private relationships, where governments, a public organization, move much more slowly in terms of decision-making protocols. They have a different hierarchy, norms, expectations, values, and certainly goals in terms of the public interest, versus a private corporation with a profit motive and potentially a much more expedited expectation in terms of turning things around and bringing products to market or making improvements. So making sure that you're managing those cultural differences between the two organizations is really critical.